So if all the sacrifices and suffering that man has endured throughout history have been done not out of guilt for a life that man feels he cannot be repaid, but out of desire, does this mean mankind feels no guilt? Certainly not. Of course mankind feels guilty, but mankind doesn't truly know why it feels guilty. There's a new description of reality formed, and it's open to consciousness that wants to establish itself within it. And don't feel guilty about detaching and letting go. You can feel guilty about all the tangled webs that you wove within life, but don't feel guilty about detaching from them. Any distress that a consciousness feels as a result of this connection with life comes from the emotional attachment to things. And this is where the guilt comes from. This is where the distress comes from. The suffering comes from. Through an association, an agreement to details that keep you locked into the agreement. An attachment to meaning. Attachments to thoughts, ideas, and form. So if something is causing you distress in life, yeah, maybe you should feel guilty about it because you yourself are creating it. But don't feel so bad about detaching, because there is no sin in creation. It is only attachment to creation and form which brings the negative. So if one wants to apologize for guilt, then apologize. Apologize for getting angry at the world, sad at the world, happy for the world, all the emotional attachment you have to the world. It is this attachment which sustains all feelings, all sufferings, all distress. So the world is all your doing, and it is all a paradoxical irony. Negative is positive and positive is negative. They are the same thing. The negative of positive is that it needs negative to sustain it. The positive about negative is it needs positive to sustain it, which would hopefully lead to the conclusion that yin-yang, two sides to one coin, all is one. So you can offer an apology, but you're only apologizing to yourself. If you can accept your own apology, then it will be accepted. If you can forgive yourself, then you will be forgiven. But you don't have to apologize for being consciousness. Only apologize for being consciousness that feels that it has to delude itself. As said earlier, there is no need to apologize for creation itself. Creation itself is pure, just a mere illusion, conjured up. These conjured up illusions only made possible from a state of being unattached. The downfall is the attachment to illusion, falling under the spell of your own illusion. So there's no need to feel sorry for detaching from this. You will be back to where you were always supposed to be, a creator. So attachments are the downfall and ruin of creativity. As much as this seems horrific to most people, as cold and unfeeling as it may seem, detachment from attachment is the best thing consciousness can do. And yet it's so natural for people to be repulsed by this idea because of all their attachments and the importance of these attachments. Our legacy, our fight for freedom, our children, our resources, our world, our future. And I know, let go of these things, but this is all that matters. This is what makes us us. No, 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 that is not what makes you a you. Everything that you associate yourself with to form this idea of a self has absolutely nothing to do with who you are, or what you are. And what you are is just perception. You are an awareness, a perspective, pure consciousness. To illustrate this point, consider the projector in a movie theater. From energy sources, a beam of light is shot out. The light is filtered through a film. It projects images onto a screen through this light. This is not unlike reality. Your perception is that beam of light. The film that the light is filtered through is a description of reality, and the images on the screen are a full realization of this description of reality. Nothing about the film changes the beam of light. No matter what goes on the screen does not change the beam of light. And the same could be said true for you. You are a point of perception comparable to that beam of light. The reality that you experience, much like the images on the screen, are the result of a description which is much like the film that the beam of light filters through. So the description and the experience do not make you who you are. So there's no need to feel guilty about or apologize for detaching, because this is the source of all suffering, this attachment. And attachments are formed from the desire for attachment. So if one really wants to sort through all of this, one must kill desire. This is really the root of it all. When consciousness harbors desire, it creates observations that manifest into perceptibles, attachments. Once perceptibles are manifested, consciousness attaches to them. This attachment creates the context where the desire can be fulfilled. This is what solidifies a dreaming awareness, the dream body, into a mundane body, the waking awareness. When desires are fulfilled, they foster the need for further stimulation. Eventually, this process brings suffering, distress. The suffering's purpose is ultimately to inspire the consciousness to return to a state of no desire, and there's no need to apologize for this. So right there is a clear quest objective. All consciousness must master desire. And where will this lead consciousness? What are the lessons that are going to be learned after mastering desire? It can only truly be known by being it. Until one becomes it, it can only be hinted at. And so, what are some of the hints? How to create and reflect without attachment. That desire has a function. It is a tool. It has its use. Kind of like fire. Fire is the perfect metaphor for desire. Fire was discovered, it was experimented with, it was learned about, and then it was mastered. And once mastered, put to use as a creative and constructive tool. And when man first discovered fire, he got burned countless times. Through mishandling or misuse, mankind got burned by fire. Until eventually, propelled by being burned, mankind learned about fire. And by learning fire, he ultimately mastered fire. The same can be said true for desire. Right now, mankind is getting burned by desire, and hard too. But you can't deal with it by not dealing with it. You gotta deal with it. You gotta roll your sleeves up and get your hands dirty. Just as fire enabled man to learn about fire, desire enables consciousness to learn about desire. And just as with fire, the lesson to be learned from desire is it is just a tool, one that can be used constructively and creatively. But it is a dangerous tool, one that must be learned how to use properly. The key is to learn how it is done and then move on. Do not let desire inflict suffering upon you. Don't get burned by the fire.